Okay. Our next speaker is Khalid Hudson. He is the advocacy manager for the Council on American Islamic Relations in Los Angeles. He has more than 25 years of organizing and advocacy experience and previously served as a senior organizer with the Industrial Areas Foundation, organizing communities in Los Angeles, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Jackson, Mississippi. He also serves as a board member of the International Museum of Muslim Cultures in Jackson, Mississippi. Khalid.
All right. Good afternoon, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, which is may peace and blessings and mercy be upon you. I'll start there. I had some statement that I was going to read, but I feel compelled to say a few other things. But just to start off with peace, in a time where the drums of war are being stroked, this is the time that we have to stand together and stand with those that are calling for peace, which we know that the lack of peace is what created Guantanamo Bay in the first place, that there was a war going on and that innocent people and many people were hurt and harmed by the war that was going on. But there's a verse in the Quran that says, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. That says, by time, verily mankind is in a state of loss, except for those who believe, do righteous good deeds, and call one another to truth and justice. And so it's my honor to stand with those that stand for human rights, for those who stand for justice, and for those who stand for people that cannot stand for themselves. And so once again, it is my honor to receive this invitation to be here with you all. I wanted to include just a couple stories. One starting with my own story is that I was blessed to accept Islam 25 years ago while a college student at the University of Iowa. And then fate would have it that I would become Muslim 5 months before 9/11. And so my time as a Muslim has always spent within some type of trial or test. And if we believe like we believe that ultimately God tests those whom he loves, so he must really love me. But immediately after becoming Muslim, we have this event, this attack that caused not only the war on terror, where millions of people throughout the Muslim world have been slaughtered, but also here in America, and particularly we've had to face with the outcome of the Patriot Act, where many within our community was being surveyed and informants were being sent in. And as a result, even 25 years later, so many within the Muslim community have been impacted. They're afraid, right? They're uncertain. Because the realities of the Patriot Act, we still live those today. We also have, where we live in a time where we have our young people, our children in many cases, have elevated their voice to stand again against the realities of a genocide. And because of lifting up that voice, they too are being persecuted. They too are being threatened. And their families are afraid for them just for using their First Amendment rights, the right to free speech. But then we also have the realities of ICE, where members again of our community, the Somali community and the Afghani community, live in fear because they are being targeted. And I'll remind you, the same Afghani community, that many of them stood with the interests of this country, and now they are being cast aside with fear that they are being sentenced to death if they were to return back to Afghanistan. And so the realities of what has happened over the years with Guantanamo Bay is still alive and with us today, not just for those that have been detained and held captive there, many of which, because there has not been any trials, they have not had the opportunity to argue that they are innocent of the charges that they have been sentenced to. I was reviewing some of the history around Guantanamo Bay, and I came across a name by the name of Ahmed Rabbani. Ahmed Rabbani was a cab driver in Pakistan, and the Pakistani army abducted him and his brother and kept them in bondage at Guantanamo Bay for 17 years. 14 of those years he was there without any trial. But eventually he is released because he was found to be innocent. He was found to be a non-combatant. He was found not to be a part of the Taliban, not to be a part of Al-Qaeda. He was an individual that was working as a cab driver in his country. And he shared some things. He wrote an op-ed in the LA Times some years ago, where he shared that for the first 595 days he was tortured. And that in the process of this torture, his weight had dropped down to 98 pounds. And then he talked about how him and some of the other detainees would do hunger strikes, extended periods of hunger strikes to protest their treatment, to protest the abuse that they were faced with. And he said that the impact that he got to a point where he could no longer take in solid foods, that it would impact his stomach in such a way. And so he asked for just liquids, or he asked for some lamb that was a softer type of a meat. And so here is a man, and I don't believe that he's the only one that was a non-combatant that was being held there. But as a country that prides itself as being the ones that have advocated for freedom, that have advocated for human rights throughout the world, this is the blatant contradiction to that narrative. And now we're seeing the realities that now that these folks are, some of them are being released or sent back to other countries, now they're repurposing that space to detain husbands, wives, children who have immigrated from countries where their quality of life was low, or that they were under persecution or attack, and they came here for their lives and the lives of their families. And now they're being detained not only in Guantanamo Bay, but they're being sent to other places throughout the world. And so, like many have called since day one, that Guantanamo Bay closed now. I echo those calls, and I also say that we need to stand together for justice, because obviously the world in which we live in, we are headed down very dark paths. And I'll use the word authoritarianism as something that we should all be worried about and concerned about, but it doesn't just start with one administration. This is something that has been happening for a very long time. And because people haven't spoken out or woken up to that reality, now we're at a point in time where feels like there's no return. But we have to keep on standing. We have to increase our numbers. We have to stand for justice, human rights, and dignity. Thank you.